Awesome, you can hear me. All right, my name is Noelle Roth. I'm from Peak Academy, and I went to Professor Baldelli's lab over the summer for a chemistry internship. Awesome, let me actually put this down a little bit more. All right, to start the internship, hold on. My main interest is in art restoration and conservation, and in this internship, I was looking for something where I could learn more about that and get some experience in a lab, and Professor Baldelli and Sarah really talked and figured out the best way for me to learn, and so I ended up doing Raman spectroscopy here, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. It couldn't have been tailored more perfectly. So to start my internship, I used a lathe and milling machine to make the plates and posts that you see up there, and I used it to set up the laser that I used during this. I also did a few side projects, like working on a microscope. I made that plate for the back, I cut it out and then drilled the holes into it. I also had to find the odd 80 screws. They're so tiny. Professor Baldelli ended up finding those for me, and I dropped one on the way back. So Raman spectroscopy was named after the guy who found it in 1930. He got the Nobel Prize for his advances in microscopes. So Raman spectroscopy is the measurement of photons, and these photons are released when the laser interacts with whatever molecule we're looking at. So these electrons jump into higher energy states, and then as they drop back into their original spots, it releases photons. These photons can be measured and are shown on that spectrum in the very top left corner in those peaks. We can use those peaks to further identify different bonds and different criteria for that molecule. So this would be used in art restoration to identify what kind of paint it is or to best restore it. And so I used the Raman spectrometer to do this. It took a lot of time to set up and align. We were aligning into a 0.05 millimeter slit into the machine, so it has to be perfect. I spent a lot of time maximizing the Rayleigh signal. You can see in that bottom right corner. That's the same amount of energy entering and exiting the sample. This, after it's reflected, it can enter into the spectrometer and be measured. Let's see. Okay. My best results came from slides that I made a slurry. The grad student I worked with, Navoda, helped me a lot with this entire process as well. So we dried that slurry onto microscope slides, and my best slide was titanium dioxide. And you can see that, I believe, okay, it's that second one right there. I also used cyclohexane to calibrate the machine, or to align it, more like. And both of these are commonly used as pigments, and cyclohexane is a solvent for paints. I also worked to see if I can put it in an NMR tube for a little bit more easier, I guess, way to get our spectrum, though I didn't have enough time to get that in the end. I started to struggle to find signal just because of how precise it had to be with those slides. There were only 1 or 2 spots, but it was still awesome. I was so happy with my results. I made both of those spectrums up there. On the side, I got to do a little bit of glass blowing as well. Professor Baldelli had a small setup in his lab where he taught me a little bit more about glass blowing and the safety, of course. Couldn't set anything on fire, and I didn't. And so I got to practice whenever I didn't have any work that had to be done, or I just wanted some extra time in the lab. For our dorms, we got really lucky. We were with that Welch group, and so there were 2 of us to each dorm. We shared a bathroom, living room, and kitchen. And, sorry, gotta be more in the microphone. So we all hung out very often. We walked about 15 minutes to the lab, and quite a bit as well to get dinner since we were on a college campus. We went to the cafeteria. On the weekends, we went out and explored. So I went out with most of the girls from the Welch group, and for the 4th of July, it was extra special because everybody got to go. So of course, we took group pictures. We also ended up going to the museum. It was my first time going to Trader Joe's. This one was in an old cinema. And then one of the things that surprised me most was how the students at the University of Houston kind of asked me what I was majoring in. And it really showed me how much I had learned in my experience. I had a few doubts at times, but I was able to answer difficult questions and have really interesting conversations with professors and students. And then you can also see down there, that's Navoda on the bottom right corner. She's the grad student who helped me a lot. I was also really surprised at how much Chick-fil-A I could eat in about a 5-week span. Many lunches. My advice for future Pinterns is to do your research about where you're going and see if you can learn a little bit more about what you're doing. You can really streamline your thinking once you get there and see if you can pull even more information. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, but go with the flow. You also want to get to know your roommates, anybody you're going to be around. I think that's what made most of my time outside of the lab so cool and so much fun, is because we were able to go do those things. And we got to play cards almost every night. Don't forget to bring walking shoes, even if you don't think you'll need them. You probably will. And then I was always reminded that results don't always come quickly, so be patient and keep working. This one is one of the biggest things that I learned. I didn't internalize it until the end, though. Really wish I had sooner. Yeah, thank you to everyone on this site and so many more.